How will we know if we're being recorded in a way that you can post on the YouTube
Well,
channel?
it should show right now. It says starting. All right, so maybe we're streaming now.
Is there any way I could verify
Okay,
this?
we're streaming now. So that should be going, Joe.
In other words, if I go on your YouTube channel, would I see your face?
You should, yes.
So to verify that we're actually live, so if I just type in Jan Irvin YouTube, will I get your channel?
It would be Gnostic Media
Oh,
now.
Gnostic Media. Okay. So if I just type in Gnostic
Hold
Media,
on, let me find it. Okay, so yeah, we're live right now. All right, so welcome everybody. Joe and I are here just doing a little test run, and we're trying to figure out how to do live streaming in some cogent manner. I'm trying to get Joe set up with the channel here. So please bear with us. I don't know if there's anybody actually watching right now, but I'll know in just a second. Let's
Jan,
see.
what I'm seeing is this. It says Gnostic Media YouTube update and test run. Jan Irvin and Joe Atwill live now, but it doesn't have our face on a screen. It just has
Well,
50.
if you wait a second, I think there was a delay there, so just hold on a second.
Hold my horses.
And now I've lost where that feed was, so I've got to go back and see if I can find the live feed. And I do not see it. So are we live? That is the question.
Well, there's a live now.
Okay, can you send me the link for that? Because if that's it, then we are live.
Well, hold on a
We're
second.
sounding like bumbling idiots here talking to the world while we figure this out like we had to do last time.
Well, I mean, the people they can just bloody well be patient. We're this is the first time. Okay, that's where I get to the screen, which
Okay.
has live now posted on it,
Okay.
and it says
Now
update.
I don't see live now on view for new. I still don't see live now.
What I see is update and test run. Jan and
Yep,
Joe.
that's the one that I just created, but I do not see it to be able to watch it.
Okay, well, what I see is I'm not
If
seeing
you click
your
on it and play it, you should see us talking right now.
right.
I do not see it
No, I
on
don't.
my
Nothing
side.
comes up when I do that. I just see the a static image which has live now
Well, the
next to it.
static image is just because I have the screen over.
Yeah. Well, it has 50 years of flower power.
Okay, well, this now, if I move that over in a second, you should see yourself there. Is that correct?
I'll tell you if I can see you or
I
see
do
me.
not see the live now thing on my channel. As yourself, returning subscriber. Maybe that's it. I found it. All right. Yep, the
Okay,
live
so we
now
found
thing.
it.
Yep, and
on
there are
my
people
channel.
in there. Hey, everyone.
As yourself.
It's going well.
Returning subscriber. Maybe that's
All right, Joe, get a haircut
found it.
already, he said. All right.
Well,
Yep, a live now thing.
that's a
Yep,
good
there are
idea. How about
people.
a hair transplant? I mean, that would be better. Yeah.
All right, Joe, get a haircut already. Comments can transplant.
I mean, that's so unkind.
Right.
I'm shocked.
All right, so we're actually live, and Joe and I, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we were trying to do figure out how to get the stuff working. So, yes, Jan, you need some more volume. All right, you need some more volume. I need some more volume, I think is what they meant. All right, yep, I definitely do. That should have fixed the volume issue. Can you folks hear me loud and clearly now? There's an echo. Now, I just turned off my audio coming back from the feed, so that should be working. Now, until we start using Zoom, apparently I'm going to be on the small window, so when we get back to using Zoom, it'll fix one of us being large and one small. All right, so Joe.
I can't. I actually cannot see myself. All I can see is your face. It's like I'm on a Skype call with you.
Huh.
That's all.
I see you on the live feed in your normal size, and I'm in the small window. Let's just pretend like that's not there, and we'll just go about what we said about to do. Joe and I wanted to talk about some of the research and issues that have been coming up regarding ayahuasca. One of the things that I'm constantly attacked for is, ayahuasca, mushrooms, peyote, they're much more ancient than the CIA. So therefore, ancient shamans couldn't have used this stuff for mind control, and the CIA is really selling spirituality or some, false conclusion like this. Now, I've done research into the history of the Mexican mushrooms and Maria Sabina and the Aztec use of the mushrooms with Montezuma and all of these people, and there's no evidence to support this idea of the spiritual mushroom that's come down to us via Terrence McKenna and Gordon Wasson and the CIA's MKUltra Subproject 58. Several months ago, Joe and I did a show exposing peyote, as well as Dr. Jerry Brown, who's got the new bogus book on that's attacking my research on psychedelic gospels, and we showed in that episode that it appears that the peyote religion was manufactured sometime around the 1850s, with the small exception that a couple Mexican tribes like the Huichol had used peyote spiritually or religiously, I should say, but not in the context that we use them today. And so recently, Joe and I had mentioned months ago that I felt that the same was probably true about ayahuasca, and that it was centered around treating stomach parasites and causing purging or vomiting. And yesterday we read Steve Bayer's article, who discusses exactly this. I had Steve Bayer on the show years ago. Bayer actually promotes ayahuasca, and what we can see, though, in his research is the same thing happening that we've already uncovered. So, Joe, do you want to start off from there and just give a little breakdown?
Sure.
And this is just going to be a short, 10 or 20-minute talk here.
Well, I was interested in ayahuasca and basically its cultural origins in Western civilization, because we had seen that the story that Wasson spun concerning Subproject 58, MKUltra Subproject 58, about the magic mushrooms was a myth that was being created by the secret society in order to help usher in the archaic revival, the counterculture. In other words, they wanted to create a real nice, tidy little mystic story about the mushrooms, so that the victims, the hippies, would be wanting to take the stuff. And then Jan and I have had a number of shows with Professor Fikes, Dr. Jay Fikes, who exposed the same situation with Carlos Castaneda. Absolutely. That it was a fraud, and that his peyote claims concerning native Indian rituals was fake, and that Castaneda was CIA. This was Dr. Fikes' conclusion after years of research.
Well, and what's interesting is when I first met Professor Fikes in 2011, he didn't think that Castaneda was CIA. He had come up against this idea. Yeah. I went down to his house in 2011 with my box of documents and laid everything out, and that was when he realized that the CIA had been messing with him the whole time. And in fact, he was close friends with Gregory Bateson, who was one of the key founders of the CIA. And so, when I went to his home with all of these documents on Carlos Castaneda and Wasson's meetings, their meetings at the Century Club, which is a CIA front organization that's related to Bohemian Grove. But when I presented all of these ties and connections to Fikes, this is when he actually started seeing the connections to the intelligence community. Now, Professor Peter T. Pierce had actually threatened to sue Fikes and the American Anthropology Association to shut down his investigation against Fierst. And now Today, we understand that, because of Fierce, this is Peter Fierce here, he died last year, because of Fierce connections with the intelligence community and MK Ultra, this was the real reason behind Fierce attacks against Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah, I just wanted to go through this little trajectory because there's like an overall concept that I want the listeners to grasp, which is that, okay, so Wasson shows the this little mythical story that he makes up. It's a cover narrative to seduce hippies into thinking that this is an ancient and religious tradition. He invents all this. Castaneda does the same thing. So Wasson does the mushrooms. Castaneda does peyote. Jim Morrison then kind of is also promoting this concept where he claims that an
shaman,
like infested his body when he died. So he creates another untrue piece of mysticism in the same thrust that Wasson and Castaneda. Now, note that...
And then, sorry, just really quickly, and then we have back, in the 1850s and forward, Quanah Parker working with President Roosevelt to sell the peyote religion to the Native Americans that they took from the Huichol and a couple of, maybe the Yaqui, a couple of other tribes in northern Mexico, but peyote was unknown to Native American tribes until the 1850s.
Yeah, and but ayahuasca has been sort of held aside from this because the story, at least among the researchers that I was talking to, was that ayahuasca was just absolutely certain, in its ancient traditions, and that this hadn't been somehow the story that got into our culture about ayahuasca hadn't been manipulated, by the people bringing it to us. And so I was suspicious because of the pattern that we have shown in the past. And also I was very suspicious because ayahuasca comes into our culture through William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg.
Right, and Professor Marlene de Rios.
Connected into the secret societies.
Right. Well, let's talk about William Burroughs, and I don't the Yage letters.
Let me just finish up my thought. So the point is that what you can kind of see is a trajectory. Notice that Wasson is straight-laced, professorial, but then the characters become more degenerate as you go through the process, and you end up with William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg, the pedophile. Burroughs, the just maniac, and so you start out with this, kind of distinguished banker, solid, easy to kind of accept. He's really not interested in hallucinogenics. And this is the story. He's really just doing research about mushrooms, which is his hobby. So that's the cover story. Of course, now this is completely untrue because we can show that Wasson is actually out looking at other substances for hallucinogenic properties. But this is the story that's given to the public in the May 57 article so that people will think, well, there's this, chance for some spiritual development through this taking of drugs. At the same time, Huxley is writing The Doors of Perception. Again, it's more of a scholarly type. People are being gently led into what becomes a counterculture. But ayahuasca, Jan, I mean, it is, they claimed it has this ancient tradition. However, when we started doing research to verify it, what we found is in fact, there really was no ancient tradition. And it's exactly the same situation. So in other words, ayahuasca fits perfectly into the pattern of, the Indians were aware that it had hallucinogenic properties, but there was no shamanic culture that was promoting ayahuasca in the 16th century or the 17th century.
And what they had was a few instances of shaman using snuffs that contained DMT.
DMT, right.
But not that these snuffs were necessarily active or that they were using them for these purposes. What they had evidence for was they were for for creating vomiting, because obviously down in the Amazon there are lots of parasites, and if you get infected with gastrointestinal parasites, you need to get them out. So diarrhea and vomit are the two best ways to get these parasites out of the system. So eventually, these systems that these plants that caused vomiting would be mixed together to create stronger and stronger purgatives, until eventually one that was an MAOI, a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, as well as one that contained DMT, which is destroyed in the gut without an MAOI, were put together. It wasn't some magical thing, and the forest just taught them that, these two plants would give them a spiritual experience and all of this nonsense. That's not what happened. All the evidence shows that it was done and created for creating something to throw up with.
Right.
To get these.
Yeah, and they still have these in existence. They have native ceremonies where they collectively throw up, where the whole tribe comes in and they take this stuff and they all throw up, and this is like just normative part of South American rainforest Indian behavior, because it's just has a beneficial effect of purging parasites. Anyway, well, that's how no doubt the combination of plants which becomes the ayahuasca drink was developed. It was developed through the normal purgative. They were just looking for more effective ways of throwing up.
Right.
And they noticed at some point that, hey, wait a second, you also get this hallucinogenic property. So they were already engaged in a kind of communal ritual with the communal purgative. So then they just started, you could see that stories would develop. And the next thing you know, a few people would be taking the drug either recreationally or just, as something to do. And now this was noted in the 19th century. That was when, people first became aware of the so-called ayahuasca drink. The claims that it's 5,000 years old.
It's complete nonsense.
Just complete nonsense. And Burroughs, there's actually a video. I don't know if you ever saw this, but Burroughs made a video about ayahuasca. Did you ever see that?
I'm not sure that I did.
Okay, well, it's basically it's just like a 5-minute clip, which is all that's left over from a longer documentary. But in the clip, Burroughs is actually narrating it, and I recommend people see it because you can really understand the sophistry when you look at the clip. I mean, first of all, it starts out with like crazy psychedelic music. I mean, the documentary is supposed to be from like the 50s, and it looks, the photographic quality, it's like it's 50.
Well, Joe, let me ask you this: when was Burroughs in Peru doing research on ayahuasca and yage? Do you remember that?
No, I don't actually.
It was actually January 1953, just 4 months, short months before MK Ultra was officially funded. So he was actually down there gathering plant substances for the CIA. And of course, we know that William Burroughs was one of the CIA's pedophile assassins. In other words, he was a pedophile and an assassin. Burroughs was actually down there collecting this stuff and creating a map for other pedophiles to harm children throughout South America at the same time.
Yeah, I
think so. This was all done right around the time Aldous Huxley and the CIA and Gordon Wasson are going around recruiting the personnel for the MK Ultra program. Alan Watts, the famous hippie philosopher, is one of the earliest ones that I've found the CIA recruit, is from October 17, 1952. But Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, all of these guys.
I'm glad you brought that up. I got a great segue, because in this little documentary, this is the part that really cracked me up. Okay, so Burroughs is narrating, and he's rolling along, and he's talking about a shaman. And first of all, he says, this is the last shaman that there is. This is the last one. He said that's an unbroken chain as old as the history of mankind, and this is all we have. So first of all, you have this very convenient situation where people are going to have a hard time looking for an ayahuasca culture, which supposedly is as old as mankind, because there's only one left.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. And then,
Yeah, so okay,
but every
but it
hippie you talk to says that it's 5,000 years old, and
right.
every one of them has tripped with the last existing shaman.
Okay, well, it gets better because now Burroughs goes on and he goes, okay, so in the ayahuasca ceremony, he goes, you can experience clairvoyance and telepathic communication. And this really made me roll on the ground because Bayer, in his really well cited article on the origins of ayahuasca, highly recommend Bayer's. Bayer has no idea, no clue about what Burroughs and Ginsberg are up to.
Right.
He's very straight about all that. He just takes it as on face and as they represent it. But he does a really good job of pointing out that all of the claims are bogus. And here, you can actually easily see that ayahuasca wasn't some kind of mystical culture creating thing for these Indians. It was just something they used to throw up with. But anyway, so Jan, he's down there. He comes to the ayahuasca, stuff. He finds it Burroughs. And then if you look, Bayer actually lists what the drug is used for. Okay. And this kind of cracked me up. It reminded me of your really excellent research and comparing what Maria Sabina said. What she said, Maria Sabina said about what the drug was used for.
Well, let's pull up. Okay, and I was just going to show
let me finish. Let me finish. I thought we were doing that because the Bayer has a little reference guide to what the drug was used for, and this is from the Indians, and these are all pedantic things. It's like trying to remember where something is.
Absolutely, and that's all the same.
If you're worried about your girlfriend cheating on you, you want to give her the drug.
She's lost and gone into the world.
Right, exactly. There is not a single mystical thing at all. So Burroughs claims, he goes, that the ceremony will give you clairvoyance and telepathic communication. Now, Jan, at this point in time, in the early 50s, telepathic communication was not something that was really, a well-known phenomena. What organization was studying it and trying to get a grip on it?
Well, it was a group called, the CIA, along with another group called the Mossad, working with people like Dr. Andrea Puharich, who was working with the Army Chemical Center at Edgewood, Maryland, and also the CIA's MK Ultra program. And he worked with this well-known CIA Mossad agent by the name of Uri Geller, and Uri Geller's even exposed that he was CIA Mossad. So, let me just say a few things here now.
Sure,
so
go ahead.
Let me say a few things. So later, so Wasson says regarding mushrooms, and we found the exact same things relating to ayahuasca, but Wasson says, the natives told us of other wonders within the power of the mushroom. 1, if a young wife vanishes, the mushroom tells in a vision where she is. 2, if money has disappeared from a secret place, the mushroom reveals who has it and where it is. 3, if a burro has disappeared, the mushroom says whether he is stolen and toward what market he is being driven for sale, or else whether it has fallen into a baraka where he lies with a broken leg. Or 4, if a boy in the family has gone away into the world, perhaps to the States, the mushroom will bring news of him. The Indians are all agreed on these matters, Gordon Wasson. So basically what we have is finding a young cheating wife, looking for stolen money, finding a missing jackass, and tracking down a boy in the family who's gone into the world. These are what, Carl Ruck and Gordon Wasson and the CIA want us to believe should be called entheogens. Now, Joe and I did a show a couple of months ago, episode 40, Teonanacatl, the sacred mushroom of sacrifice and suicide, where I've actually gone through looking at the primary 16th century accounts, and almost nothing in them amounts to the diatribe and nonsense that we see from so-called Professor Carl Ruck at Boston University and Jonathan Ott and Gordon Wasson and these guys who are selling
How about
nonsense.
Dr. Jerry Brown and the psychedelic gospels?
Well, and Jerry Brown, yeah, and of course we exposed Dr. Jerry Brown and the psychedelic gospels. You know, for those who don't know, Dr. Jerry Brown actually wrote that whole entire book against me. It's actually based on my book, The Holy Mushroom, and the whole book is there to distort my work and slander me. I mean, this university professor actually took the time to write an entire book to distort my research from my book, The Holy Mushroom, on Gordon Wasson and John Allegra, and he used this hack, Tom Hatsis, whom I've debunked and exposed repeatedly for the foundation of his whole argument against me. And his work is just nonsense. But if people go and read my book, The Holy Mushroom, first, and then read the psychedelic gospels from Professor Jerry Brown, they can see what complete nonsense it is. Now,
I haven't read
what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, now, okay, you keep making me lose my train of thought.
Go ahead, sorry.
All right, so, what we have is comments like, this is a comment from this brilliant man, Clint Howard. He sends me this loving and kind and thoughtful, well thought out message to me about our research, having studied absolutely none of it. And he says, "You go against the shamans of the Amazon saying Ayahuasca is used for brainwashing. You are pathetic. Go get a real job instead of feeding pablum to the babies. You have obviously never drinking ayahuasca with a real ayahuasquero. Get a real job. I've done so much work in my life, and you sit there on a podcast and get paid for fiction. Why don't you go into studying constitutional law like a real man?" I mean, this is just the most fallacious nonsense.
Is that a contemporary
Dude, hold on a second.
Yeah, but I have to know what you're talking about.
I'm reading someone's message to me, as I said before you interrupted me 5 times.
John, I don't mean to interrupt, but I didn't understand. Is this message from someone who's listening right now, or is this something that's historical?
No, he sent me the message on like January 25th. It's a message from somebody who hasn't researched anything we've ever put out and was high on drugs in a jungle with the shaman and thinks that the ayahuasca, because he was high in the jungle, is 5,000 years old. In other words, he drank the tea or the punch and believed it. And, so this is the kind of nonsense that we have to get over. People like this Clint guy who can't, this Clint Howard who can't make cogent, clear, well-researched arguments. They have to attack what we're doing. And, Clint, these other people, they've never gone through the primary research or citations to check if their beliefs are real. So when somebody like you and I tries to expose this stuff, the best they can do is to just attack it and name call and turn into, infants or children slinging feces.
Got it. Well, first of all, I keep meaning to read Brown's book, and I haven't.
It's crap.
I have a lot of ways that I know where it kind of comes from, but I haven't actually.
Read my Holy Mushroom book first, cover to cover, and then read Dr. Jerry Brown's book.
Yeah, I'll have to do that because I'm curious about that. But this guy who wrote that kind of strange reaction to the research. I mean, look, first of all, on an individual scale, there isn't anything that I or Jan can really comment on. We're not commenting on some person's reaction to ayahuasca, or claiming that you can't have dramatic spiritual,
realize that SRI and Harvard and MKUltra, as I expose in my Entheogens What's in a Name article, actually marketed the spiritual experience from them. There is a dramatic experience to be had. I've done ayahuasca many times. I've done many psychedelics, suggestions, many hundreds of times. It's not like I don't have experience with these substances, as is one of the most common arguments against me. The issue is that the substances are suggestogens and they create hypersuggestion. Yes, the experience is dramatic, but what they did was they remarketed a psychotic break as a spiritual experience. So this is what people need to understand. Yeah, hell yeah, it's a dramatic experience. Yes, you can, learn things by having a psychotic break, but if you need to do that, go maybe do it once and never do it again. Like, you don't need to waste hundreds of nights pillow sitting and navel gazing like I did, because the first or second time is enough, and never do it again,
Yeah, my point is that he's really kind of talking about the wrong phenomena. We're really not focused on what an individual might get out of it. We're focused on the cultural structure that led the individual to take the drug in the first place. We're trying to show, look, this is how this drug enters into our culture. And if you look at the pattern, if you look at the MK Ultra documents showing Gordon Wasson, Subproject 58, rolling out the psychedelic revolution, if you look at Jan and Jay Fikes' work on Castaneda, clear as a bell. I mean, this is a CIA operation.
Let me read something. This is from Marlene Dobkin de Rios. She was the professor of anthropology, ironically, at Cal State Fullerton. She went on to be associate professor at UC Irvine. And she's the primary woman, other than pedophiles Ginsburg and Burroughs, who popularized ayahuasca. She says that in 1992, we discussed the role of hallucinogenic plants in adolescent rites of passage in 3 traditional non-Western societies of the world. In the West, individualism is an undisputed value. Since the end of World War II, the empty self has emerged among the U.S. middle class with the breakdown of the family, community, and tradition. Alienation, fragmentation, and a sense of confusion and meaningfulness pervade Western society, which particularly affects young people. There is a compulsion to fill up this emptiness, reflected in various ailments of our society: eating disorders, consumers' buying sprees, and a perceived need for mind-altering substances. Now, mind you, folks, this is the very woman who popularized ayahuasca stating this, and she helped to create this emptiness, through, with the CIA, with Wasson. She was there with Wasson and Carlos Castaneda and William M. Bowden Jr. and all of these guys. She was right in the middle of this stuff. And here she is admitting it. Now, here's another quote that I have from Marlene. And I really think that Marlene probably started second-guessing her work with the intelligence community right before she died. And she and I were in contact in 2012, like 2 or 3 months before she died of cancer. And she was going to come back on the show, but she had written a book called Ayahuasca, Tea Laced with Controversy, where she warns everybody to not go do it. So I think after years of selling this crap for the agency, her conscience got the best of her. And she says, psychedelic substances like ayahuasca create a state of hypersuggestibility in which persons are very open to being influenced by others. Many traditional cultures have utilized this condition to inculcate cultural values and behaviors in young people as they receive initiation into adulthood. In the West, cultural values can be inculcated into young people when using these psychedelics, especially when using them in an antinomian context. And of course, antinomian means of or relating to the view that Christians are released by grace from the obligation of observing moral law. So again, she's admitting that this is all about the attack on morals and family and everything, which she just talked about in the previous quote I just read. With the destruction of Western traditional values, individualism is an undisputed value. Since the end of World War II, the empty self has emerged among the U.S. middle classes with the breakdown of the family, community, and tradition.
Yeah, it's too bad.
And then Terrence McKenna is out there promoting how culture and all of this is bad, Meanwhile, the breakup of culture in the family is what leads people to needing, to be high on drugs to feel fulfilled as a spiritual person. Now, to be honest, and coming out of these beliefs and seeing myself in hindsight, I'm in awe, because the meanest, rudest, most vicious comments I get from the public from doing this show for 8 years and exposing all of this are from the New Age hippies and people that think that they're enlightened and spiritual. And almost none of them ever, like Clint Howard, almost none of them ever read the research before they go on some long attack against me.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's too bad that she passed away, because it does seem to me that she started to question what she was doing, and I'm always amazed that there aren't more turncoats, particularly anthropologists. They really have to have a tight drum on that whole field, because it's so clear how much evil is organized underneath its banner, and
Absolutely.
you would think there'd be some people who would come forward. But so what we've done today is very simple. We've shown that ayahuasca, as it was introduced to our culture by Ginsberg and Burroughs, fits into this pattern of basically trying to create a counterculture where hallucinogenic suggestogens are widely taken, with the idea that with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, they can basically move people away from family production. I think that it has to be remembered that they take existing use of psychedelic plants. Right. So they find, like with Maria Sabina, with the wheat chill, with the use of the purgatives that produce hallucinations, they're out looking for them. Right. Wasson.
Right.
Okay. So they're out looking for them. When they find them, then what the plan is to create a mythical storyline about the drug use.
A manufactured ancient religion.
Right, exactly. So then they bring
neo-shamanism.
Right. They bring it to the culture and say, look at this. They give like little bizarre details, like, there's telepathy, or it's 5,000 years old.
And jumping waterfalls.
And like Castaneda stuff. And so you get all of these stories that kind of create a kind of... remember the quote that Jan gave earlier, that mysticism is the quote of tyrants.
Tool of tyrants, yeah.
So they create a mysticism, a mythical structure to bring what had been a very routine use of plants by natives who used plants for everything in their lives, not just the claimed spirituality seeking. They use plants in a much more routine manner. And so this then is transformed into the mythical Indian culture that's given to the hippies in the 60s. And you can, when you put the Yage letters, the correspondence between Ginsberg and Burroughs, which introduces ayahuasca into our culture.
And pedophilia together.
Right. Into the context of, which we show with like Jim Morrison, with Carlos Castaneda, with Wasson. It's a very clear situation, and people need to bear this in mind. Jan and I are not trying to, comment on your spiritual development. That's your own business. What we're commenting on is the real history of how the drug came into the culture and the real motivation of the people who are bringing it to us.
Well said.
That's my take, Jan. How about you, brother?
Well, I agree with you. Why don't we, and this, we've already gone way longer than we said we were going to go. Why don't we
just wrap it up?
You want to field some questions from the audience? We've got
sure,
60, 70 people in there. Anybody have any questions in the audience?
I'm happy to. Jan and I are both happy to take questions.
Are there any questions anybody has in the audience you'd like us to answer? Anyone? Bueller? It's quiet right when I ask. They're talking about the TED conferences right now.
Okay, but here's the deal. We're going to be doing a lot of this stuff, so we've actually have some ambition.
Somebody is asking, is Carl Sagan a trustworthy individual? I was looking him up for years. I don't trust Carl Sagan.
I don't trust him either. And I would just say the answer is no.
Yeah, I would say most mainstream scholars that get that popular
Right. You
are
don't
going to
get to
be
that kind of
corrupt. Now, I
position.
don't really, have much on him. There's all I have on Carlos Castaneda in the database, Mr. X, and tied over to Psychotomimetic. I'd have to go back through and find my connection in the database as to why that's there.
Well, I don't have that. I don't have that advantage. I have just a purely analytic reason for not trusting him, which is you don't become a media personality, particularly when you're sort of an obnoxious and really kind of useless individual, unless they're promoting someone who's inside the gang. I mean,
Right.
you look at people like Noam Chomsky.
Oh God, that
I mean,
guy's
it's like,
as dirty as they get.
but like you think about it, or even like the rock and roll stars, that are just clearly intel agents, and you go, they're just so horrible. They're such miserable beings, and they have so little talent. Why are they even inside our?
Let's focus on some more of these questions because we're getting a whole bunch of them in here. So somebody wants to know about Walt Disney. Walt Disney had worked with SRI, who was behind the MKUltra project to create Disneyland. In fact, Disneyland was funded, I believe, the same week that MKUltra was funded. And that can all be found in the database there. Marshall McLuhan, he's another that I have looked into, and I think McLuhan was, if I can find his name and type it correctly, Marshall McLuhan. He was in with all of these groups, working with the Bilderberg Group, Cambridge University, influenced by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who we see pop up with Terence McKenna's work. I.A. Richards created the dumbed-down English language of 850 words. But I would say that Marshall McLuhan was beyond any doubt dirty, and that doesn't mean that this doesn't at all imply that you should not study these people. You have to study your enemy to know the tools that they use against you. Now they're asking about Milo Yiannopoulos, etc. I mean,
Okay, wait,
hold on, Joe. Here's the thing.
Let me talk because I still want to say that in terms of Disney before we go on to Milo, is that you've got all kinds of secret societies. They're all linked together. They have different names. You have Skull and Bones. You have Bohemian Grove. You have the Freemasons. You have, believe me, there's a lot of them, but they all lead back to the same overarching secret society. When Jan and I talk about MK Ultra and the CIA, believe me, the CIA is not in control. The CIA was not a rogue part of the U.S. government. The CIA takes orders
from the U.S. government,
right, or from the society. When you look at Disney, you're looking at a Freemason. He's trained as a demolay. He's got Club 33. Every single person that they're representing when Disneyland opens up, the people who create the stories are Masons. I mean, you've got Lewis Carroll, Mark Twain. I mean, it's just
and then he's incorporating all of those stories into the.
So anyway, that's
don't forget there's a bunch of questions here we need to get.
Okay, well then go ahead. Yeah, let me add that.
All right, so we've got people asking about Alex Gray. Again, look in the database. These are people that we've flushed out already. We've already done shows about Terence McKenna and Dennis McKenna exposing them. So see the Unspun Show archives. Terence McKenna, he's got more intelligence connections than just about anyone. He admitted that he was recruited. I think Dennis McKenna is dirty as hell. Dennis McKenna has been out slandering me for a long time. But these are Terrence's intelligence connections on screen here. I would and somebody asked, can we get Hank Harrison on? We've been trying to do that.
I'm going to have to leave. I have all
right, Joe.
A problem here with the leak that is requiring immediate attention. We've got a lot of water in Santa Barbara, and so our house is.
All right, and let me just say really quickly before you go, somebody asked about Richard Andrew Grove. I did have a beef with Grove. He faked all of his 9/11 research. Clint Richardson wrote an article on Reality Blogger exposing all of that. So, people need to look into that. I do. Here, let me see if I can find that. The Strange Case of Richard Andrew Grove. And we did pull the primary documents of Grove's court case, and Grove did fake all of that. Unfortunately, I had worked with Grove for a number of years before I realized what was going on there. But do read this article. None of the court documents stack up to his claims. So anyway, folks, that's about it, and we'll see you next time. Take care.